Are you tired of writing Terraform code that looks like this? You have a security group with a bunch of ingress rules, and they are just copy-paste with a couple of small changes to the ports and protocols and stuff like that. They are a total nightmare to maintain, and a single change is very error-prone. This kind of code isn't just ugly and hard to read, it's a ticking time bomb. What happens if you miss updating one of these blocks when a new security requirement comes down the pipe? Your infrastructure could be left vulnerable or completely misconfigured just because of a copy-paste error. Writing code like this is just a maintenance trap that doesn't scale. In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve this problem by leveraging Terraform's dynamic blocks. So what is a Terraform dynamic block? A Terraform dynamic block is a Terraform built-in feature that lets you create multiple configuration blocks based on an input list or map. You should think of it as a for loop inside of your resource that doesn't create multiple resources of the same type, but it actually creates multiple configuration blocks of the same type. Terraform's documentation actually said it perfectly. A Terraform dynamic block acts a lot like a for expression, but produces nested blocks instead of a complex typed value. Let's take a look now at how we can change this configuration to make it easier to maintain. So in our AWS security group, we have multiple ingress blocks and we also have multiple egress blocks. So what we will need to do is to create two dynamic blocks, one for ingress and the other one for egress. So a dynamic block takes the following parameters. The first one is called label, and this is just the block that you want to repeat inside of your resource. So for the first one, this will be ingress. The next parameter it takes is actually for each. So in here, you have to add the list or the map that you want to use. So I will just add something for now, ingress rules. And we can also have an optional value called iterator. By default, the iterator is the name of the dynamic block, so the label that you add in here, but you can change it to something else. So let's say ingress rules, for example. And inside of this block, you'll also have a content. And in the content, you'll just repeat the parameters that you have in here. So let's actually define the variable for the ingress block. So this will be variable ingress rules, and let's say this is a map of object, and it has a description which is a string. It also has a from port which is a number. It also has a to port which is again a number. It also has a protocol which is a string, and it also has CIDR blocks, which is a list of string. Okay, now we can add a default value to this one. So let's say HTTP, for example, from anywhere can be one of them. And this would be equal to, and we will copy all of these from above, and we will add different values to them. So let's add the values. This is HTTP from anywhere, for example, from port, this would be 80, to port would be also 80, the protocol would be TCP, and for the list of CIDR blocks, we'll add just 000/0. Let's just make it a little more prettier. And we are good to go for the first rule. So in here, we will add something like ingress rules dot value dot description. Again, this is because I've added the iterator in here. Otherwise, it would have been ingress dot value dot description. We'll do ingress rules dot value dot from port, and we will do it a couple of more times as well, and say to port, protocol, and CIDR blocks. So we are now good to go with one of our rules. And let's do the egress as well. I will just remove all of the other configurations from here just to make it easier to write. But of course, you can add all of them in the variable as well. So dynamic egress, we'll do a for each in a var.egress rules. I'm not going to use the iterator anymore for this one. Do the content. Again, copy, paste all of these to make it easier to follow. I'll just remove all of them. Let's add another one. So now I'll do egress.value.description from port to port, protocol, and CIDR blocks. Now I'll just do the same variable for egress, so egress rules, and let's say we will do the DNS outbound only for this one. So let's do DNS outbound from port 53 to port 53. The protocol is UDP for this one, and again 000/0. I'll just remove everything else. So right now my resource is pretty small, as you can see here. I have only 2 dynamic blocks, I don't have all of those rules, and the values I have them right now in these default blocks. So let's do a Terraform init, and now let's do a Terraform plan. Now we can see here that I have like 2 rules, for the one for egress and the other one for ingress. If I want to add another rule for the ingress, for example, I'll just copy and paste and say HTTPS, for example, HTTPS from anywhere 443.443. And if I do a Terraform plan again, we will see that we have a new rule for ingress. So we have HTTPS and HTTP. By the way, if you find this video helpful, make sure you check out my Terraform for each versus count video, because it explains really well how you can compare different loops inside of Terraform and how you can generate multiple resources of the same type with it. I'll leave the video in the description below. Moving on, I want to show you that you can also use YAML variables for defining your dynamic blocks. So to do that, let's actually define a YAML file. So let's say vars.yaml, and I'm going to do a locals block and say YAML variables. This is equal to file of vars.yaml, and I'll also do a YAML decode in front of it, because I want to decode these values. Let's open this to the side and populate it with the values. So let's do ingress rules, and this will be equal to, let's say, HTTP, the first one, and then we'll do description. This is HTTP from anywhere. Let's do from port. This is 80. To port is also 80. Protocol is TCP. And CIDR blocks is 000/0. Let's do the HTTPS as well. So HTTPS 443.443. And now let's do the egress block as well. So this would be egress rules. And we do here a DNS and say this is DNS outbound. This is 53 and UDP. So now let's go back to our main.tf. And in here, the for each will be on YAML local.yaml variables.ingress rules, and the other one would be local.yaml variables.egress rules. So if I do it again, we should see the new variables in here. So as you can see, the rules are okay. Let's add just another one to make sure that everything is just fine. Let's say SSH 22, and just do a Terraform plan again. And we can see that we have SSH as well, just by using the YAML file. Another interesting thing about dynamic blocks is the fact that you can also have nested dynamic blocks. So this is an Oracle Cloud security list. And in here, I have a dynamic ingress security rules block, and I have the content in here. And inside the content, I have a block called TCP options that I'm also using it with dynamic as well. So basically, dynamic blocks can be nested, and depending on the resource schema, they can go on how many nested levels the resource schema permits. Dynamic blocks are really powerful, but don't feel like you need to use them all over the place. If you have a resource that has only 2 static blocks that will never change, it's okay to still use static blocks. If your configuration, however, changes a lot, dynamic blocks should be your go-to. If this video was helpful and you feel like you now understand dynamic blocks better in Terraform, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Let me know in the comment section what kind of videos you want to see next. I'm Flavius, see you the next time.